Univerza v Novi Gorici je konec julija gostila Josepha F. Sutterja iz korporacije Boeing, Seattle, Washington, ZDA. Joseph F. Sutter se je rodil leta 1921 v ZDA s slovenskim staršem. Študiral je aeronautiko na University of Washington. Leta 1943 diplomiral in postal inženir aeronautike. Leta 1945 je nastopil službo v Boeingu kot specialist za aerodinamiko. V 60-ih letih je postal glavni načrtovalec letala Boeing 747, ki je še danes svetovna uspešnica v letalskem prometu in transportu. Gospod Sutter je po vsem svetu poznan kot oče jumbo jeta. Leta 1986 se je upokojil kot podpredsednik družbe Boeing, še vedno pa je aktiven kot svetovalec pri Boeing Commercial Airplane Group. Je prejemnik mnogih prestižnih priznanj. Na podlagi izjemnih dosežkov na področju svetovnega razvoja letalstva je Senat Univerze v Novi Gorici v znak priznanja gospodu Josephu Sutterju podelil častni doktorat. Slavnostna podelitev je bila 21. julija na gradu Dobrovo v Goriških Brdih. Gospod Sutter je ob tej priložnosti tudi predaval.
Spoštovani gospodje, veseli me, da smo se zbrali v tako velikem številu na predavanju gospoda Josepha Sutterja, ki mu bomo ob tej priliki podelili tudi častni doktorat Univerze v Novi Gorici. Govoril bom slovensko, na koncu bom pa kratek povzetek podal v angleščini. For those of you who are not yet excellent in Slovenian language, I will make a small translation at the end. So wait. Univerza v Novi Gorici je zelo pazljiva pri podeljevanju častnih doktoratov. Zaenkrat smo podelili 2, to je 3. primer. Prva 2 sta Nobelova nagrajenca, sedaj pa podeljujemo častni doktorat vrhunskemu inženirju. Mi namreč mislimo, da sta oba 2 pola tega univerzitetnega življenja pomembna, po eni strani vrhunska znanost, vrhunski ljudje, ki skušajo razumeti, kaj se dogaja, kako stvari, kako reči delujejo, in na drugi strani vrhunski inženirji, ki reči, ki delujejo, ustvarjajo in delajo. Tako da pri tem ne gre samo za znanost, gre tudi za uporabo znanosti. Mogoče par besed o življenju in zgodovini gospoda Sutterja. Oče je bil Slovenec iz Dobrove pri Ljubljani, imigrant v Združenih državah Amerike, nekaj časa je bil na Aljaski, je iskal srečo, potem je bil mesarski pomočnik v Seattlu. Skratka, ne posebno bogata družina, ampak že sin, naslednja generacija, je šel študirati, ne na prav elitni univerzi, ker ni bilo možnosti, ampak na spodobni univerzi, in se zaposlil pri Boeingu in na koncu postal podpredsednik te velike korporacije. Izjemen dosežek. Ta zgodba nam daje nekaj iztočnic, nekaj misli, ki bi jih bilo treba poudariti. Eno je, inženir je poklic sam zase. Inženir ne potrebuje magisterija, ne potrebuje doktorata, potrebuje dela, s katerimi se pohvali. Drugi del zgodbe, ki je treba omeniti, je pa to, da življenje in delo gospoda Sutterja kaže, da tudi če si priseljenec, tudi če si reven, tudi če nimaš prav elitne izobrazbe, se da, če veš, kaj hočeš in če vztrajno deluješ v tej smeri. To ne velja samo za posameznike, to velja tudi za narode. Tudi če ste narod, ki ni razvit popolnoma tako kot drugi, ki je revnejši, ki ni tako izobražen, kot bi lahko bil, se da, če se potrudimo in če ne obupavamo. So Mr. Sutter, I introduced you briefly. I said we are very glad that you are here. We are very glad that members of your family are here, your friends are here, and we will have a chance to get finally this doctorate honoris causa. I also try to say that we at the University of Nova Gorica are very careful in selecting candidates for this title. You are the third Doctor honoris causa. First two are Nobel laureates, and you are top engineer. We believe that both aspects are important. One is the science, people who try to understand how the things work, and on the other hand are engineers who make things which work. So we are glad that you are here. I also said that you lived as an immigrant family, not in very good conditions, but still you did it. You were not at one of these best universities, but you were the best student in your class. You started at Boeing company very low, and you came to the top. So this applies not only to people, individuals, but also to nations. If we are small nations, not very rich, not very well educated, we still can do as you did. So I would like you to invite to come here, and we give you this document on the, yeah, fine. Okay. Thank you, fine. Yeah. It's my pleasure to give you on behalf of the Senate of the University of Nova Gorica this document, which says that it's partly English and partly Slovenian, because we are very careful of our language. It's the Senate of the University of Nova Gorica. It's on the April 13th, 2004, decided to give you doctorate, Doctor honoris causa. So this is the, yeah. I do believe. Yeah, thank you. Fine. As a small gift, we give you our symbol of our university, which it's an owl, which is wisdom. And
knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. Yeah. So maybe you just leave this there. So maybe you would like to say just a few words.
You know, when I received this invitation, I was a little embarrassed because this university has these wonderful scientists, two of them with the Nobel Prize, and I'm just a lonely engineer.
Yeah.
Lonely engineer. And how that engineer would fit into this crowd, I wasn't so sure. So it's a very great honor for me and a very great pleasure for me. On top of that, this is my father's homeland. I brought my children with me. We all feel we come home when we come here. But it's a very great honor, and I hope I'm worthy of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, thank you once again. The honor, of course, is ours.
Okay.
So I ask you if you can give your talk.
Give my lecture?
Yeah.
I'll be glad to do that. I've spent 40 years working as a design engineer. I never was involved in scientific or research activities. What I did was take the knowledge from scientists and research people and put that into airplane design. I am very grateful for this honor from the university, because if you look at what happened in the airplane design area, it was the scientists and the research people that brought it into being. It's only been about 100 years that airplanes have been with us. Two gentlemen named Wilbur and Orville Wright started it all. They designed and flew the first man-powered airplane. Now, there may be other people that also might claim they were very close to and may have been the first. But the thing that the Wright brothers did was to develop the science and basic research so that their machine did fly properly. These gentlemen were not engineers or scientists, but they applied scientific principles. They developed their own wind tunnel, they developed their own airfoils, they developed their own engine. They understood what makes airplanes fly straight and turn when the pilot wants them to. And all that was done by applying scientific knowledge that they developed in-house, if you will. That was only a little over 100 years ago. Today, as we're standing here, there are about 7,000 airplanes in the air right now. There are about 1 million people up in the air right now. An airplane I had a lot to do with, the 747 of Boeing, has carried a half of the world's population. So I think the air transportation industry is an absolute marvel, and I was glad to have a part in it. I'd like to just read the statement from the university, and it's one reason why I appreciate these honors which I received. It says, the activities of Nova Scotia Polytechnic are dedicated to search for scientific truth and to educate young and talented people. And I believe it's universities like the Polytechnic that are very, very important to the future of this world, not only to pursue science so that the big problems of this world are solved, but also to bring the people along that are going to solve them. So again, it's very, very a pleasure to me to be associated with the university, and that's why I'm going to treasure this honor. After the Wright brothers brought the airplane into being, for about 30 years, I don't think much happened to the airplane design business. Airplanes were built out of fabric and wires, very unreliable and underpowered engines, and air transportation, it was just for the few adventurous souls. It took about 30 years for the people to really know what to do with airplanes. After about 30 years, though, the airplanes got more capable so that some people began flying with them. But these airplanes were designed to use reciprocating engines, which were noisy and unreliable, and the economics airplanes weren't very good. But again, the scientists, if you will, came to the rescue. In about 1945, people at universities and in research institutes like the NASA in the United States and in the German universities realized that there was something wrong, that airplanes are never going to fly very fast if something wasn't changed. And it was that basic quest for information that pushed the research into what we all call the swept wing. And that was almost a revolution, realizing that the swept wing was the way that we could have the ability to get airplanes to fly close to the speed of sound without running into severe drag problems and stability control problems. While that was happening, other people in the research area, one in England and one in Germany, realized that you're never going to fly airplanes fast with propellers. Again, you'd run into physical limitations. And again, using their brains, if you will, using science, the jet engine came along. And the marriage of the swept wing and the jet engine was what really started aviation to being, it gave the ability to carry people efficiently enough so that more and more people could fly. When I came to Boeing after my Navy career, I was given the job of cleaning up engineering problems on the last propeller-driven airplane that Boeing built for the commercial purposes, a very large airplane with the biggest reciprocating engine ever built, 28 cylinders. The airplane was a comfortable airplane to fly, but it was not very efficient. And it was not very reliable. People referred to that airplane as the best three-engine, four-engine airplane flying because many, many flights, the pilots would bring the airplane home with one of the engines shut down. But when the jet engine and swept wing came into being, and luckily I was at a company that saw it, they could see this research was important, they had literally jumped on it, and the first commercial jet in the United States was what they call a Boeing 707. That immediately increased air travel by leaps and bounds because the cost of top flying dropped. It became much safer. The turbine engine was much more reliable. It flew over the weather, and people began really going after air travel. That period didn't last very long. It became so evident that this was the way to go that immediately then Boeing brought out a medium-range airplane called the 727. Boeing had built about 1,000 707, which was very, very large production. But the 727, because it was used into cities in the US and Europe and the rest, Boeing built 2,800 of those airplanes. Their next endeavor was to even go after more short haul. And I was one of two people that decided we better build a better mousetrap if we're going to get into that business, because both in England and in the US, there were small airplanes already in production. We came up with a scheme of putting a wider fuselage on the airplane and taking the engines off of the back end of the airplane and putting them underneath the wing, and that became the 737. And I was very, very happy last night to land at Ljubljana, and sitting on the ramp was a Boeing 737-500 in Adria's colors. And I've spent many visits here hoping we could get Adria to be able to use Boeing airplanes. Their route structure and whatnot requires smaller airplanes, but the 737-500, I think they're going to find out is a very, very useful airplane for them. And I was very pleased to look out the window and see that airplane. So there was a whole fleet of airplanes. Boeing was building large, long-range airplanes, intermediate-range airplanes, and short-haul airplanes. But what happened, because ticket prices was falling, people became more secure in flying. It was a smoother flight. There was a demand for a bigger airplane. And I was asked to do studies on a big airplane. And that airplane became the 747. At the time that was being developed, people thought there'd be 200 to 300 to 400 of those airplanes being built. Today, Boeing is working on about the 1400, and that's an expensive airplane, and 1400 times the price of what Boeing charged for a 747, that is very, very large business. While all of this was going on, the scientists were at work, the engineers were at work, the operators were at work, and another important part of the equation was at work, and that is the regulators. Because of the early days of aviation, there were accidents, some of them near major populations of the world, which attracted a lot of attention. The regulators in Washington, D.C., and also in England and Europe decided they better monitor the situation. I believe the system that was developed is a very, very important one, and I believe other people should look at that system. In our country, it's called the Federal Aviation Agencies. And I wouldn't want to leave you the impression that I agreed with everything they did. But the one thing about the Federal Aviation Agency and the European certifiers, whenever you get on an airplane, that airplane is certified. It has to meet certain minimum rules or it doesn't leave the gate. And I think more industries should adopt that philosophy, and I think you'd have less accidents, you'd have a lower cost of production, and this world would benefit from it. When I look at the world, and I think the university is working on some of the problems that I think are the most serious ones, and the two I look at that everybody talks about is the energy situation. Everybody wants to use oil for everything. And the increase of oil usage is becoming very severe, and the price of petroleum products are 30–40% increase every year or even more. The other area of great concern is the environment. Everybody worries about global warming, worries about taking care of people in the less fortunate parts of the world. And the thing that really bothers me is I think it's been a very, very fragmented approach to that problem. Right now in the United States, we're having an election in November. One politician says, well, if you re-elect me, I will draft rules to inhibit the use of petroleum. We will go after do the job by not using so much. Well, I don't believe that's going to happen. People need to use it. Another politician will say, well, I'm going to build hydrogen cars. He forgot about the Hindenburg and the space shuttle. Both of those vehicles use hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very elusive gas and liquid. One who I think might have more of a right answer is raise corn and sugar beets and use ethanol. Down in Brazil today, they don't depend on oil. They do raise crops and they do operate their vehicles on ethanol. Whether he's right or not, I don't know. Others say go out and explore for oil in these remote parts of the world. And maybe that's the answer. But the point I'm making is too many people are looking at part of the equation. Nobody is looking at how do you solve this problem totally and over the long period of time. In the environment, the same issues, you know. Some people say, well, don't raise any more children. In China, for instance, 1 child per family. I don't think that's going to last very long. Other people have solutions for global warming, if you will. work on the ozone by getting rid of carbon dioxide. All of those are fragmented approaches. And I think the real solution to this is to go right back to basic research, get the scientists to work on the problem, and come up with a coordinated overall view of the world. And that's the only way that we're going to solve these very, very serious problems. I don't believe that any near-term fix is available to these problems. They are going to take a long time, and they're going to take a lot of effort. I believe the university here has got a part to play in this effort, and I would urge the university to put the students to work on these problems, and I would urge the university to make sure those students, when they come up with scientific research that might have a payoff, is to tell the world about it. When I was working at Boeing, I had a lot of problems with some very talented people. They knew their jobs. They were the best in the world. I had one fellow that was a flutter expert, a stability and dynamic stability and control expert. I kept getting him and trying to get him in front of my management because there was a fellow with great potential. He was shy of facing management. He wanted to do research. He wanted to stay in his laboratory. I don't think it pays off to develop scientific research people and have them stay in the laboratory. They've got to take their work and take it out to the world and make sure the world understands what they're talking about. And that's a difficult job because if he proposed something that's going to cost money, the politicians don't like it, there'll be a lot of resistance for it. So I would urge this scientific community to keep working on the efforts of developing what these big solutions are with the world and then make sure the world understands them. I really enjoyed doing what I did at Boeing because when I go to an airport now, I see all these people getting on airplanes and going to where they want to go. Like, for instance, my family, myself, we couldn't get back to Slovenia without airplanes. I don't think anybody's going to take a 5 or 6 day boat ride anymore. The airplane has really brought the world together. And if you look at the world today, the nations that use air transportation are really trying to work on the problems. And the few areas in the world where the people are restricted from traveling, or restricted from being exposed to the outside world, those are the people that, because they don't really understand the situation, are the troublemakers. So we have to communicate. The airplane has done a great job of communicating, and I was very happy to be part of it. In closing, again, I would urge the university to really do what the little pamphlet says. I think the future is in the youth of the country and the youth of the world, and I applaud the university for doing what they're doing. And again, I'm very pleased to have this honor exposed on me. I still feel I'm an engineer out of my class with these Nobel Prize winners, but I'm going to accept the award and put it on my office wall. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we have some time for questions. If anybody, you? Please, yeah, Professor Plesnicher.
Sir, to begin with, I would like to introduce me. I'm a physician, you know, so I do not know very much about speed and power, and I don't know. But on the other side, I'm a frequent traveler with the 747 in your country. And as a matter of fact is that the tourist class is rather crowded, you know it well. And the fact is that particularly has been noticed in the last years that elderly people, after 8 hours sitting there, coming at the place, they had complaint troubles with the venous and arterial system of the legs. So my question is simple. In the new craft you are now, they are not just coming out of your factories. The passenger will be much more comfortable, let me say, could stretch the leg during the trip from the Europe to the United States. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
You know, when we design an airplane, like the 747, and the customers, the airlines come and view it, and they looked at all of the space of the 747. Isn't this marvelous? They were going to put barbershops in it, bars, all kinds of things. But then the economics of the situation comes into being, and with the pressure of trying to make money, then they began squeezing seats into the airplane. When we brought out the 747 initially, we had in the tourist section, which you were referring to, 9 abreast. We had 2 seats, 4 in the middle, and 3 on one side. The seats were a little broader, and the spaces was like 32 to 34 inches. But then, you know, the competition and fuel prices going up, the airlines began squeezing the seats together. And it's just the nature of the world where competition is there and you have to do it, and so the comfort of the people gives away. Right now, though, I was viewing a mock-up in the new Boeing airplanes, the 747 and these new airplanes Boeing. They have designed a seat that even with that short spacing, the person has a lot more comfort, can stretch his legs. So even in seats, there's a lot of research and development. And these new seats are just coming into being. It's been a very, very difficult problem. My son, who's with me here, used to work at Boeing, and one of the things he did was to purchase the seats for the airplanes, for the airlines. And he was given a very, very difficult problem because those seats before were designed for a crash, an airplane crashing and being able to hold together with 9 Gs. But after doing some accident research, the FAA said you have to go to 16 Gs. So here you are, you've got a tight environment for the passenger, and you got a seat that in a crash, if he weighs 16 times normal, that seat will hold together. And to try and make that seat comfortable is a big problem. But that research is now coming into fruition, and I think in the future you will see more comfort. And the problem of people with circulation problem is very evident now, and it's getting a lot of attention. But it's too bad we all can't have all the space we want when we get on an airplane, but that would wreck the economics of the airplane. Okay.
Thank you very much for this explanation, because I thought all the time that my dimensions are changing in these last 30 years, but now I learned that the seats are changing. Yeah. Yeah. Some other questions? Maybe one more personal question. You were a family, father came from Slovenia. Mm-hmm. Did you have any contacts to Slovenia in your early years, or there was simply no time to?
Well, we really didn't have much contact. My father would receive a letter once in a while, written in your language, and I was too young to know what was going on. My sister, she's 6 years older than me, she was sort of my mother was ill, and my sister Fran was sort of running the family, and she had some of that knowledge, and we've used that knowledge to help trace the family. But World War II produced a big problem. The only contact we had after that was a letter written by a person that was forced into the German army, and he was injured, and he migrated to Brazil, I believe, and he wrote us a letter seeking some help because he wanted to come to the United States, and we sent him that, what he asked for, and we never ever heard from him.
Yeah.
But then, I think it was the last visit or the visit before, Johannes Holwinga, who's head of the genealogy section of Slovenia, he dug into it, and now we know a lot of family members.
All right.
And we're going to see him tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Gospod Sutter je bil gost Univerze v Novi Gorici dober teden dni. Sprejeli so ga tudi nekateri slovenski gospodarstveniki in visoki predstavniki oblasti.